Luckily for us, we are back, we are going, and we're going to jump straight into the waiver. Now, I don't want to jinx anything. We did say that this probably, before coming on and before these issues, that this might be a shorter podcast slash stream tonight because there weren't all that many waivers last week. So, in terms of, the time it takes to get through those and give a grade and do all those things, not too bad this evening, Mick.
Well, I mean, it'll be shorter for the listener's point of view. It'll be longer for us because we keep having to work out what's going wrong. And maybe that's just a sign that we were waffling. We just needed to get to the real stuff.
Of course. It's like, well, hang on here. You need to get into it, and I'm just going to keep waffling for a little bit now. We'll get into it here. Let's do it. So, Mick, you want to jump into it? I'm going to show them up on the
Uh,
screen, and we'll go.
nice, straightforward one. There's only 6 transactions put through. Only 4 actually worked. So, Craney was first. Picked up Connor Cody from Everton for Struijk from Leeds. Leeds had Liverpool this weekend, even though they did get the win. I can
and the clean
understand
sheet.
why he did that. Everton had Fulham, so I can understand that one.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty solid. Everton have been pretty good defensively, so I'll give that one a B plus.
yeah.
Jeff picked up Zuma, dropped Chalobah, old favorite
Oh,
Chalobah.
Chalobah.
Zuma coming off a goal and a clean sheet in his last game for 15 points. So I can understand it. West Ham have looked a little bit better more recently, but doing it a week they played Manchester United was interesting. But he did have a Chelsea against Brighton, so a bit of a strange one there. Has worked out for him. I'll give that one I'll say a B, purely because it's a nailed on. Zuma's nailed on, Chalobah's not. I
Sure.
don't know if that was the week I would have done it personally, if you only picked up Chalobah the week before. I'll give it a B, maybe even a B minus, but a B because it's the guaranteed starter, just a weird week to do it. But it did work out. It did work out quite well for him.
Yep.
Gilby was next. He picked up Mikalenko for Christensen, so another Leeds defender out. Again, understandable. Mikalenko, another Everton defender in. So effectively, Craney and Gilby, very, very similar moves. Interesting that Gilby actually had Cody as the second defender that he wanted for Everton. He ended up going with Mikalenko, who has one assist in, 13 games. And he's played almost every minute except 5 for this season. So nailed on. Doesn't look like much of a goal threat. He does look like a bit of a creative player, but I mean, that's using that creativity index that FPL puts up. So he's 12th out of all defenders. But I mean, you could argue 1 assist out of 13 games, not the most creative player. So interesting one there by Gilby. Maybe he's seen something in previous weeks, but I think Everton's fixtures: Leicester, Bournemouth, Wolves next. Looking pretty good,
Not
so I
bad.
can understand why he did that one. Then, like I said, he tried for Cody. He also tried for Tomiyasu, who's been kind of put back he's played the last 4 games, started 60 minutes or more in that right back role with Ben White, I believe. Actually, no, Tomiyasu's been playing left, I think. Ben White's still on the right.
Okay.
Because Zinchenko's been out injured and
Yeah.
Tierney's been back, but just not favoured by Arteta, which is a bit of an interesting one. He was so good for them last year. So understandable there. So they're the 3 that have gone through. Then there was one free agent trade with Dan dropping Doherty for, what is it, Wout Faze. That's a hard name to say. Not many letters, but still pretty tough. Leicester defender. So new guys taken over from Johnny Evans, or more so Fofana, I think.
Yeah.
Leicester have played a lot better in the last couple of weeks, but interesting one to pick him up the week that he plays City. That's
Yeah,
ballsy.
wouldn't have been on a lot of people's radar, I guess, but
no, and I feel like Dan
potentially a bit of a weird
could have
one.
waited another week, especially when Matt Doherty had Bournemouth. I mean, it's worked out. Bournemouth, he didn't play against Bournemouth. Maybe there was an injury there that we've missed. Now it's being cleared up or something. So interesting one there. I don't quite get it. I don't think anyone would have been necessarily going for Faze. Pretty sure their other centre back might also be free. I can't even think of who it is off the top of my head. I know I've got Justin and Gilby has Castagne. So their 2 wing backs are out, but I don't think their centre backs have been taken at all this season. So interesting one there. I guess there might be some reason for it. Maybe it's just purely because he's playing, which if that's what it is, fair enough, because he did get the 2 points. But yeah, that's all of the moves this week. A really short, sharp, concise.
Perfect. That's what we like to see. And we were mentioning, before we started this, that it is that point of the season where we should be fairly settled with our squads at this point in time. And
Yeah.
unless there's injuries that are forcing us to take other players, it's probable that, there won't be too much going on, which might be good for some trades between managers as well, if people are looking to freshen up their squad or find a different player. So that'll be interesting to see if there's more of those. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of that talk during the World Cup as well, where we'll try and maybe put a few sneaky trades in to get some different players in. So that'll be very interesting to see. And I guess it's time to have a look at the ladder. Now, it was an interesting round this round for quite a number of reasons, and I'm sure one that you would love to talk about as well, right at the top, for example. So if we have a look quickly, we've got Craney still at the bottom, but picked up 40 points this game week. Really, really, solid game week. Dan with 30 points this game week was the unlucky loser for the game week. Nathan was able to climb up into equal with Ben. I think he's actually technically gone down because Ben has got 51 points this game week. Nathan 42, both on 480 points. Bit of a gap then to Dave with 37 points the game week. And then Mick, you've been able to climb up with a really good 57 points. So the winner of this game week, really well done there. Jeff 51 points, Gilby 54 points, and myself only 33 points. So this was the sort of thing that we were talking about in that, I'd been really solid for a long time. 33 points this game week, meaning that, still in first place, but there's definitely been some clawing back by most managers, not just Gilby, but most managers have been able to have a bit of a catch up, which is good.
Yeah, it was what we were saying last week, that it's all well and good if one of us has a good round each week, but really for any of us to have a chance, we needed you to start having some poor rounds. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you might have had like a 25 in your second round, but apart from that, everything was over 40. Am I right
Yes,
in saying that? So
that's right.
33, comparatively, a very poor game week. And I don't know if we want to go straight into it. Maybe we work from the top down this week off that, but
Yeah, let's
your
do it.
team's not looking great for this week. You've got a few issues.
Potentially, absolutely. And so,
Well,
I
not
mean,
even potentially. You've got two suspended and one out injured. Or I guess if Haaland plays, maybe he'll
well, that's the
save you.
thing.
But if he's out, you've got two suspended and an injured. That means you've got one that's definitely not playing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We'll have a look at mine first. So we'll jump into it and look at my team currently, and then talk about what's happening moving forward. So, yeah, I mean, 33 points. Loris with 1, only Gabriel with 6, and Almiron with 12, but they only two to write home about. Currently, like you can see, we've got 3 red Doritos of death and 1 yellow Dorito of death. Now, there's a chance Haaland may play, but definitely Haaland won't. Fernandez won't. He is suspended, as is Tony, and Kulusevski is still injured, looking to get back in the next game week or two. The frustrating thing is Pickford with 11 points was sort of on the bench, which is a bit of a shame. That's not the first time that I've left Pickford on the bench for good points, so I might have to revise my strategy there. But what I will
I mean,
say is that probably over the last 4 weeks, I've actually left quite a lot of points on the bench. I'll have a look at that in a second and maybe put some a tally together. But left quite a few points on the bench, so that's a bit of a shame. But yeah, it's
your 12 from Almiron saved you, really.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And like Almiron is what many would think is my fifth midfielder. So for him to do that, he's been in great form. Don't get me wrong. So that's been good. But yeah, next week could be a bit of a struggle and a stretch, and I may have to. Um, I mean, I'm not necessarily going to make wholesale changes, but I definitely will make sure that I have a defender uh, in Ake at the moment who didn't play. I'll definitely make sure I've got a defender who's playing. So that'll be one of the big things that I look at doing to make sure I'm maximizing whatever points I do tend to get.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see because is there any point in Haaland starting the game if he's even got some doubt? Maybe you put him on the bench. If you need him, you give him 10 minutes. It's against Fulham, and who we've commented they've been going okay,
Playing pretty
but
well.
I I
Look,
would
they
still
will.
expect Man City to get over them without Haaland.
Yeah, yeah, you would think so. You'd think that they will risk manage as best they can because they'll look at whatever the injury is. I can't even say I know exactly what it
Ankle,
is.
I
To
think
be
he
fair,
got stood on
ankle.
in the first half, and then he was sick as well. So then he only played the
Uh,
first half of
sure.
Champions League last week.
Okay. So yeah, I think they probably look at it in terms of, well, you know, we've got three important games because I mean they are behind. Let's not just think, oh, they're running away with it here. They're behind on the ladder at the moment. So they don't want to drop points, and so they know they've got a big break coming up as well where Haaland can get that refresh and recovery. So it's really going to be on them to see, well, is there a potential for him to do that injury, make that injury worse, and that might decide whether or not they start him. But yeah, I've called this podcast high risk Haaland because it's something Gilby has alluded to in terms of I've had two players who realistically each week have done really really well for me, Haaland being one of them, and as soon as he doesn't play or doesn't do well, look what happens to the score. So
I mean, yes, you can say high risk Haaland, but I would almost say no, because if he if he plays, you haul. He's not gonna come off the bench for a minute very often. So you get a
yeah,
zero, in which case you bring on any defender who gets you two. Like,
yeah.
it's not like you're going to get the ones or the zeros when they come off the bench and get a yellow card, like Richarlison, for instance. So there's not really any risk. You kind of get the best of both worlds. You get a 200-point striker, and then for the 10 games he's injured, you get 20 points from just a playing defender.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't I wouldn't change having Haaland for the world. I like it's been fun, really. Like for him to get as many points as he's got. It's just been awesome to see. Not going to change that. And if that means I just need one or two others to chip in during the week to get a good point score, well, hey, happy days. Um, and I part of it is when I think of, Gilby's not too far behind realistically now. The thing is with this game, it can only take 3 weeks for there to be a change at the top.
Yep,
That's all it
absolutely.
takes. And I don't think necessarily that's a bad thing. Like, you know, the, why not? That's the fun of it, right? So at the end of the day, if I get hauled in the next couple of weeks, that's all right.
So
And
to
it's
put
part
it
of
in
the game. It's a bit of
perspective,
fun.
in the last 3 weeks, I've made up 40 points. And
Yeah.
in those 40 points, there was a week I lost 20 to you. If that 20 goes the other way, I've made up 80
Yeah.
points in 3 weeks.
Yeah. You've been in terms of your team in really good form, which is awesome, right?
Yeah, and I think,
And that's going to be there. Like I wouldn't say I was doing so well that I was extending my lead, but I was being very consistent.
yeah.
And consistency is part of actually winning the game, but
Hmm.
you've then got to rely on every once in a while getting a really really good score so you can actually make that little jump and make that gap. And that's not just for the leader; that's for everyone in
Yeah.
in the ladder. Really, that's how it works. That's how it goes.
And I think it's one that we've probably had almost direct opposite years so far. I think in the long run, I'd prefer to start poorly and then have a good team going forward. And
Yeah,
maybe Gilby's team last year would be a good example of starting really strong, not resting on your laurels, because I won't say he did that, because obviously we had a system in place. We didn't end up playing that system with the mid-season draft, and he held on to an injured player, which with the first year of this format last year, we realized afterwards you just cannot do, particularly if it's a
yeah,
long-term injury, which it wasn't a long-term injury, but it became a long-term injury, and there was other mitigating factors. But I
yeah,
think I would much prefer to start poorly, get the benefit of the waiver system, but then 10, 12 weeks in, start getting a team that can perform and be consistent from there. And I feel like I'm going to have a better spot there because I've had time to work out and look at who's playing well and who's playing in
yeah,
an important role for their team. And I've got the earlier chance to pick up those important players. Now,
yeah,
unfortunately, to a degree, the whole season's about to stop completely and then restart. and then all of that data is gone. All of that, those roles may change, and then there's a transfer window straight after that. So I'm really hoping that, what is there, 3 more rounds between now and then? Maybe I can catch up another 30 points across those 3 rounds.
Yeah.
If I can be within, maybe let's go 23. If I can be within 50 of the lead after it'll be 17 rounds, I'll be ecstatic. With 21 rounds to go, averaging 2 points making up a round, and with double game weeks come end of season, very, very achievable. So
Yeah.
considering at one point the highest I was behind is 115 points, to get within 50, I'll be pretty happy.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think this break does make it a bit easier at the moment to hold a player as well. Like what we mentioned with Gilby
Yeah.
before, like he held Calvert-Lewin for too long. He would admit that, and that did mean that his form, his point scoring potential dropped. I've held Kulusevski for a while. He should be back maybe a game before the break.
What was
But
his injury?
that's again a very good question. I can't say I know exactly what it was, um, but
Hamstring, it says here.
hamstring. But I do know that I can do that, and I have been doing that for a while. And it's not as though I've been um, leaking too many points other than this last week, and that was just the fact that I had a rotten week, and pretty much everyone else had a good week, and sometimes that's going to happen. So this week again, it could be poor again if Haaland doesn't play or if I don't get all as many players on the pitch as possible. But you got to roll with that. I'm going to have good weeks, going to have bad weeks. I've had good weeks for a long time. Might have bad weeks every once in a while, but we've got a break coming up, and that means we can refresh a little bit. I just did the quick calculation. So over the last 4 weeks, I've left 32 points on the bench. So
That's 1 week for me sometimes.
yeah, I know. But when that's that and a little bit, or a little bit less than that is what I basically dropped this week to almost everyone in the league. That's a considerable amount. So these things happen. That's how it rolls. So I'm looking forward to seeing if I can hold on, and if I can, awesome. If I can't, well, that's okay. We keep working away.
I would be surprised, barring Haaland playing and hauling, I would be surprised if your lead isn't eaten into more this week.
I
Not saying
expect to.
not expecting significantly necessarily, but I can't see you topping the week just with the players that I
Yeah,
assume you're going to carry that we
yeah,
know aren't going to play,
yeah,
and then picking up more than likely from free agency. In saying that, Almiron might still score a double, and
yeah,
you might have Bernardo Silva play in that false nine role if Haaland doesn't play, and
yeah.
you never know. But
It's
it,
it's just in terms of my squad this week. It's just that perfect storm this week for it. Like it's just really unfortunate. I've got two of my heavy hitters who are both suspended because of you know various things. It doesn't happen often,
yeah,
realistically,
and
where someone's in this position, but that's what it is this week, and that's okay.
and then creating a perfect segue is, it makes it even worse when between you and Gilby in second, you've got five of the midfielders and forwards for Manchester City. So when yours aren't playing, his are. So
Yeah,
if you're going to have a week where yours don't score well, chances are he's going to score well. So you kind of, between the two of you, one of you is going to get points. It's just a matter of which one. So,
yeah,
um, so I think that leads pretty well into Gilby's there. So
it absolutely
54
does.
points, 54
54
points he
points.
got. So kind of had really good results all across his backline, and then a couple of performers in the midfield. So Nick Pope for 6, Dalot, Gahey, and Mikolenko for 9, 6, and 6, and then Chilwell only got the 1. Was that appearance points,
Must have
or
been.
was it off
Or
the
they
bench
did get, they
26?
did get, yeah,
There you go.
26.
To be honest, that was probably a better result than what it would have been if he'd started. So he had Madison
True.
and Gundogan for 2 and 3. Trossard he did get 7 from, for a goal. De Bruyne he got 11 from, 3 bonus, a goal, a clean sheet, 90 minutes. Up front, only 2 from Alvarez, which I guess this is
Bit of a
Alvarez's
shame.
chance to actually making some points,
Yeah.
but did get 76 minutes, and I'd assume he get more this weekend. And Watkins with the yellow card only getting 1 point there. On his bench, Kepa didn't get the game, I don't think. Only played half, sorry, and conceded 3 goals in that half
Yeah.
for 0. Sancho didn't play the trade that we made. Oh, did I mention we made that trade? Was that the week before?
Who was that one with?
Ward-Prowse for Sancho, straight swap between Gilby
No,
and
didn't mention that
myself.
one.
There you go. Maybe it happened after the deadline. But yeah, Sancho and Ward-Prowse, we've made a straight swap leading into last weekend. Um,
Okay.
it was originally I did put Rashford on the table because I did get
Mhm.
Rashford. I had a double Man United. Obviously, Gilby being a Manchester United fan, I wanted to try and play into that. And it was also a defender swap where I'd be giving him Creswell for Diego Dalot. And then
Oh, you're
Gilby
not getting a
obviously,
Man United player from him, mate.
and then Gilby being the busy person he is, didn't have a whole lot of time. I said, "That's all right, man. Like, if you don't get to it, you don't get to it." Then eventually he got back to me and said, "Yep, I'm happy for that trade." And I said, "Look, in all honesty, in the time that you've taken to get back to me, I've cooled on giving up Rashford. I think I'd prefer to keep Rashford and give up Sancho instead." Now, it wasn't a ploy, it wasn't a tactic, anything like that. It was purely, you know what, change of heart. I think I'd prefer Rashford, and I realize I'm not going to get as much, but that's okay. He said, I'm happy for the same trade without the defender swap. So I think, as much as I realize Sancho could haul more than Ward-Prowse, Ward-Prowse is going to get 2 points every week. He'll get
Yeah.
the okay. If Southampton do start playing a little bit better, he's going to be involved.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that comes through. And unfortunately for Gilby, Sancho got left on the bench and didn't even get any minutes this week. So 0 for Sancho. Ronaldo did get 2 points in a full 90 minutes. And Castagne got against Leicester 2 points for a 1-0 loss. So not too much he's missed there. Definitely hasn't left anything on his bench.
No.
Just good
Maximize his
performances.
points. Yeah.
Yeah. Four clean sheets across his goalkeeper and backline, and then 2 goals from his midfield, and enough to get to 54, which would generally, I'd say, be top three. But in a week where I think three, maybe four people broke 50, and then three people didn't even break 40, that's a good score. Made up
Yeah.
21 points on the leader, which is what you want when you come in second.
That's exactly right. So he'll be pretty happy with that. He's good performances all around. So, happy days for Gilby. And you know, Jeff again, 50. So realistically, the main guys who are chasing at the moment in second, third, and fourth all got above 50 point hauls, which is what you want, right? So Jeff, 51 points. If we quickly have a look at his team, I'll just bring it up. Edison with 9 points. Keepers have done really well lately. Martinez, Robertson with 7 apiece. Burn with 6. Salah with 7. We've got who else? We've got her Mbuemo with 4. We've got Hoiberg with 5. And then on his bench, Rodrigo, he's left on his bench with 6. Sanchez with 5. But obviously, Edison did better. So, again, some really good performances by a lot of his team. He's got to be pretty happy with that. And I think Jeff always seems to have a strong team and is in a good position. He's strengthened his forwards a little bit. He's certainly at least got guys who are playing now, which is really good to keep picking up those points. So you got to think all in all that Jeff is, pretty happy with his team and moving along nicely.
Yeah. I look back at the trade Jeff made with Nathan,
Yeah.
Matip and Welbeck for Koulibaly and Isaac. Now, I'm at the time there might have been more to it, but looking at it right now, that may be the most useless trade that we've had in fantasy. Welbeck, I will admit, I sent a message to Jeff and said, I don't mind Welbeck. He's playing for Brighton. He's been playing 90 minutes. I think they're a good team. He's a chance to do something.
No, man, he doesn't
Since
score.
I'm pretty sure since Jeff has picked him up, he has not played a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, he got 2 points for 78 minutes, and then he didn't even get a minute on the weekend.
Yeah.
Matip got injured again, hasn't
Yeah.
played since.
And it's the same
Isaac
for Nathan. None of those
Isaac's
players
had the
have played
same,
either.
and Koulibaly. So literally, out of those 4 players in 2 rounds, so 8 potential matches, there has been 2 points.
Wow.
That is a hell of a trade.
Hell of a trade. No, it's I it's a long-term thing for Nathan, I think, and he knew that. But yeah, I don't think it's really done Jeff any favors. But like I say, he's still managed to technically strengthen, even though Welbeck's not playing. But Welbeck doesn't score any points that way, so I'm not thinking that it's. It wouldn't surprise me if he just gets rid of Welbeck and picks up somebody else from the free agency, and then he's got neither of those players anymore from that
Yep.
trade, which would have been
Yep.
just absolutely amazing. So, you know, um, We'll have to track it and see if there's any other just absolutely useless trades this season. But
Well,
that
the other
certainly could be
one,
top of the list.
the other one involving Jeff was with Craney. I think I mentioned it last week. Is Jordan Henderson for Joelinton, who I'm pretty sure both have maybe started every second game. I don't think
Yeah,
either has
okay.
scored a goal, so they're averaging about 1 point each per game. So there's some questionable things happening around there.
Some questionable things. Now, Mick, 57 points this game week, the
Yeah.
leader.
Hmm.
But how do you feel leaving 8 points on your bench with Leno get it scoring 10? Come
I
on, it could have
mean,
been better.
it
Could have
could
been
have
better.
been. I still don't think I'm playing. I mean, I could have played Fulham's keeper, but it's not often you 3 bonus points, clean sheet, a save point, 2 point, and points for playing minutes as well. Whereas you wouldn't expect Liverpool to concede two to Leeds. I guess Leeds
Yeah.
can play, but it's not like they've had a consistent front line. They've had Bamford in and out. They've had Rodrigo in and out. They've had Harrison in and out. They've had everybody coming and going, and Sinister has been suspended here and there. So they haven't had that consistency. I think, and I do have double Liverpool defense with Trent as well. Right?
Yeah.
I considered it, and I'm considering it even for this weekend, is do I drop Trent? Do I risk mitigate and only play one of them? But my issue is Trent is he's about his attacking return. I don't know if I can possibly leave him out of my team purely because of his attacking return,
Look,
because
I've
he could
seen,
get
I know
three.
Dave had him last year, and at times he did do that, and he paid the price because he didn't pick up all his points.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be my strategy. But what I'll say, having a look at your team here, you you are you have curated a really solid team,
Mm,
and I think that like that you don't have that like one big name. So like I've got Haaland, for example, or
yeah.
Gilby has De Bruyne or whatever. You haven't got that because Alexander Arnold hasn't been probably at his best this year. But it's just a really solid team. If someone like Rashford gets going, um, you know, you're sitting in a really nice spot, I think.
Yeah, I think if I look at my starting team that I played this week, take out Pinnock, for example, and I could see almost every single one of those guys going in the first 8 rounds of our draft.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
a number. I'm thinking there's 15 rounds, but there's 10 guys there, and I'm happy that I reckon at least two of those guys I've picked up that probably I've made up ground there.
Yeah,
But in
yeah.
terms of this week, really, there's two main scorers.
It's the
Um,
Newcastle show.
Newcastle show Trippier with 11, Wilson with 19, and Bruno Gomes with 3. 33 points equaled your entire week with just the Newcastle guys on my team. So
Nice.
that
Want to do a
really
trade?
helped. Really, yeah,
My team for those three. My squad for
Will
those three.
Wilson for Haaland. Um, I
Good
was
try.
a little bit annoyed that in a 5-0 win, Saka did get an assist, but then came off with an injury.
Yeah.
So 4 points. So I mean, I can't be disappointed with 4 points, but to know what it could have been is really frustrating. The guy that came in for him, Reece Nelson, it looks like he played outstanding. So
Yeah.
in saying that, though, for the 26 minutes that Saka did play, from everything I've heard, he looked very, very good. So Arteta seems to be very much a pick and stick. He has his team. He likes to stick with it. I would assume if Saka's fit, he comes straight back into it. But we will wait and see. Well, I also got 8 points there from Rashford. So not really much else to write about other than those. So Saka, Trippier, Wilson, and Rashford. A couple of appearance points from Allison, Trent, Pinnock for Brentford, Ward Prowse, clean sheet point for Eze, and then 1 point for Mitrovic, I'm assuming for a yellow. Yep.
Yeah.
But annoyingly, on my bench, 18 points across those four. 10 for Leno, 4 for Bamford, so we must have got an assist off the bench, and appearance points for Creswell and Justin. So
Yeah.
could have been a little bit more, but 57
I mean,
points.
yeah, realistically, you could have had an extra 11 points with Bamford and Leno coming on,
Yeah,
and um, obviously we've spoken about leaving points on your bench, but 57 points is still pretty good. And you're trending in the right direction, and you've got a solid team, so
absolutely.
things are definitely on the up there.
Absolutely.
Well, we will run through the rest. So Dave's dropped down into fifth. He hasn't had a fantastic week. Only I believe 34 points. So bit of room to work with there. Oh, sorry, my computer's deciding. Oh, you know what? I don't want to. I don't
Yeah,
want to update or
mine
refresh.
wouldn't load either, but I've got it here now, so I can go through it.
Let's do it.
Really struggling. So if I've straight off the bat, he's got 4 Doritos of death. I think we might have said that last week.
Yeah.
Fabianski, his backup keeper, has a Dorito. Zinchenko and James have for a couple of weeks had a Dorito. And now
Yep.
Jensen, his Brentford midfielder, has a knock. Be interesting to see whether he stays around. And then he had
Hmm.
Skamaka, who did he play? He did. He's got a yellow card and didn't make the 60 minutes. So
Oh,
really
lovely.
struggled. He had 10 for Odegaard, 6 for Shaw. Luke Shaw looks like a new player again. Must be every World Cup. He has to win his spot back. He plays well and then he forgets how to
Yeah.
play
Every
again.
every every big sort of tournament. Yeah.
And then Botman for a clean sheet. He had Perisic for 4 points with an assist off the bench. Um, Elise with a clean sheet, and then pretty much appearance points elsewhere. So 37 points made up of 10, 6, and 6. That's the majority of it right there. So not too much else there. Didn't really leave anything on the bench. Wouldn't have upgraded his team other than by 1 point. So St. Maximin coming back is a good thing for him. It saves him a little bit. Could be a bad thing for you with Almiron, but with Almiron's form, I can't see him getting dropped.
Not right now. Definitely not. And we've spoken about this before. Jeff only had three. Oh, sorry, Jeff. Dave only has traded 3 times, 3 transactions. So realistically, he's done very, very well. If he sees the opportunity and wants to maybe get rid of some of those Doritos to death, he might look to maximize a few more points. So, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see what his strategy is moving forward and whether he sees the value in it. He might not at this point in time. And, coming fifth, I can't say I can blame him. He's only 80 points behind. So, there's still plenty of opportunity there for him. And we might as well talk about Ben. 51 points. Not too bad at all. Not too shabby. So if we have a look at his really quickly, he's got De Gea with 8, Cancelo with 6, White with 6, Davies with 7, Anderson with 6. So really maximise those points out the back other than Silva. Ericsson with 8. And he's, there was, we've spoken on the podcast around Ericsson and maybe dropping him or considering trading and things like that, but he's stuck to him and he's got 8 points. And then Grealish with 6 really is all to write home about there. So, he's got to be pretty happy with that 51 points, I'd say. That's a really good return, considering some of his more heavy hitters down the bottom who didn't play or didn't really feature. There's still points potential there. So he's a
Absolutely.
good
And
team.
I think he's almost a little bit hard done by. He's got Solanke for Bournemouth, who the team scored 3 goals, didn't even get a single attacking return.
Yeah,
Um,
surprising.
he's had Anthony, who didn't get a minute for Manchester United, and then you look at we were talking about Gilby before with Sancho. So neither Sancho or Anthony had a minute. Anthony may have been because of a knock. He had Thiago Silva in there for 0. What does he do with Sterling?
Ah,
He-
yes. The forward turn
he's
wing back.
is that why he's not scoring well? Is he playing in a legitimate wingback role? I
Apparently,
know
yeah. That's
Potter
where
has
Potter's
come
got
out and
him.
Potter came
Apparently,
out and
him and
said that
Pulisic are the
okay,
wing backs at the moment.
maybe that's why. But so is it Havertz playing up front? Because I've seen Aubameyang's been coming off the bench most weeks.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that's a tough one. Um, his first 2 draft picks, Cancelo, does look like he's starting to play a little bit better now,
Yeah.
more consistently anyway, because he went 7, 11, miss 12, miss 9, 1, 18, 2, 2, 6. So inconsistent, but 71 points you'd be relatively happy with. But Sterling, his second pick, which was, I think, at the turn again, which I think he was last year as well. So that kind of cusp of first round, second round, and 44 points across 13 games, you'd be pretty disappointed only getting 3 points a game from your second round draft pick. So,
Yeah.
but in saying that, you can't drop him, but you just have nothing in return. I think with the view that he could play that out and out striker or play that um, forward line role, you've got to keep him and just stick by him and hope, really.
You do. It's turning into a bit of a Mahrez type thing. But Yeah, you do. You're not dropping him at this point in time, and you're just hoping that whoever you've got as, say, your fifth midfielder is able to chime in with some points here and there. So, um, yeah, I mean, still 51 points is good. That's what you want. And I think he's going to be pretty happy with that. And he is level points with Nathan.
Yep.
So I'll throw Nathan's up at the moment. As we've said, Koulibaly with nothing. Diego Costa. First red card in the Premier League, would you believe?
Was it?
Yeah, first straight
What?
red. I'm
I
sure
didn't
he's got
even.
other reds before, but straight red.
I
First
honestly
straight red.
didn't even know he got a red card. What did he get the red card for?
I believe he headbutted an opponent.
90th minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, actually, I did see it. I did see it. I remember this now. I don't think there was that much in it, to be honest.
No, but just Costa doing Costa things, realistically. We look at the midfield, Gross with 7, Martinelli with 8. They've come to save him this ground week. And then his 2 Manchester City defenders with 6 points each, and Ramsdale with 6. So pretty good sort of across the board. When you're in the 40 points for a game week, that means you're being really consistent. That's where you want to be. And then rely on, those game weeks where you're bumping up a little bit further than that. We've spoken about his bench already, so Varane and Veltman, realistically, they're the two that he probably needs to look at removing and going in a different direction to maximise his points. I can understand him keeping Isaac around because forwards are sort of at a bit of a premium, and if you can sort of hold one through injury, it's not a bad thing, although don't do it for too long. But yeah, 42 points is a pretty decent score overall, realistically.
Yeah, I think so. It's particularly when you look at there's some obvious gaps you can fill to give him a bit more variety. So if you can get 42 points when he's got some obvious holes, then there's easy fixes there. So that could easily become a 50 in a future week.
Yep. So we move on to Dan, 30 points the game week now. That is the lowest this game week. Have a look at his team. Realistically, without Saliba or Jesus, it would have been an absolute shambles.
Wow.
So those two have really come to the fore. But if we have a look at his bench as well, he's got 2 guys that are injured. Martinez, I think, went off injured with a bit of a head clash, I believe. And good old Mahrez on the bench as well, who isn't featuring at the moment. So
3 zeros, 5 ones, 5 twos, a 7 and a 9.
yeah, not his game week, unfortunately, especially when a lot of managers are getting over 50. So once upon a time, I'm sure I said about Dan's team, hey, it looks really solid. Sort of where you are now. I'm like, oh, it looks really solid, looks really good. I mean, I look at the team now, especially with those injuries, and just that it just
Yeah.
shows what injuries can do to key players in your team.
It's interesting. I look at Dan's team, and it kind of has the opposite feel to not necessarily my team, but what I would say is the ideal team. I think if I think
So
of
the unideal team?
well, maybe I'm referring to like the official game where
Sure.
you want premium midfielders from good teams,
Yeah.
but you're happy with good defenders that have good matchups from middle table teams. Whereas he's got defenders from good teams and mid-table midfielders. And I just don't think that's the way you score points that well. And obviously, I know you look at the bench. You've got Richarlison, Mahrez, and Diaz there. Well, yes, that's where he's are. Unfortunately,
Yes.
they're injured, but I think that's and forward line's a little bit different. Firmino and Jesus, they're good. I'm happy. Like you'd be happy with them, but it's almost not that he's necessarily got it around, but the way the cards have fallen and the way he's had to draft and pick up plays in free agency since then, he's ended up with relatively a really strong backline in terms of the teams they're from.
Yeah.
But defenders, unless they are premium, as in top 4 in the league, outside those top 4, you just don't score well with defenders. You need quality mids. And unfortunately, with Mahrez not playing, Diaz injured, he doesn't have a quality mid.
So the player's got to be double trade to try and
Absolutely. I
get
think,
rid of some of those key defenders that he has to bring in a stronger midfield.
well, who do you give up, though? I mean, who does he have as an asset to give up? Maybe he tries to give up a Diaz to
I would go
give in
Diaz.
to see who's willing to hold him for the next 3 weeks. Diaz was his first round draft pick, remember, though.
Oh no, sorry, I'm talking the defender.
Oh, Diaz, Ruben Diaz. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
probably you've got to make your weaker backline, but give it a couple of weeks. Does Gomez have a role? Does Cucurella start every week? If
yeah,
not, then suddenly his backline's really weak as well. He's only got Saliba and then
yeah.
Leicester's midfield. So
I think I'd be potentially like, no one's really realistically going to take Gomez, but they might take Cucurella. So he could potentially be one that say comes out, which would be interesting. Um, so realistically, it looks as though Dan has a little bit to do there to maybe rebalance his team. I think that's realistically where he needs to go. So it's probably time to have a look at our last place now, Craney. If you listen to this, you're last this week in terms of us talking about a team, which usually means that team's on top. But unfortunately, that isn't the case. You still are in ninth place, but 40 points this round. I know you're fairly excited around that. So that's a really good thing. Let's have a look at the team. So we've got Shah on 6, me on 11. Um, we also have Edward, who got 6 points there. We've got. Uh, sort of appearance points for the rest. So that's really where we were looking and where we were going there with Craney. It does seem, though, as though we've left a few points on the bench. So Havertz there with 9 points. Connor Cody with 7 points. Gator with 9 points. So you have a look at that bench, and there was a lot
see,
of
you,
points left there.
you said in the last 3 or 4 game weeks you had 33 points on your bench or 32
Yeah.
points. Granny has 27 in this week alone.
I mean, how impressive is that? That's incredibly
It's
impressive.
That's really unfortunate. Now, how much more could he have made if he put Gator in goal? That's an extra 6. If he
Yep.
started Cody over Van Dijk, there's another 6. So there's 12 more. If you played Havertz over Aubameyang, there's another 8. There's 20 points that he's, I guess, effectively lost out on,
Which
and
that would have won him the round, and he would have been ecstatic.
that's rough.
Really rough. Feel for the guy, but at the same time, don't feel for the guy because he beat me in the round week anyway. So hey, sucks to be you, Craney.
He did say that. He's like, I finally cracked 40. It's a shame I'm still in the bottom half of the table. I said, look, at the end of the day, you're closer to first than you were last week. So,
Yeah, I mean he has benefited from having lots of first trades in the waiver, and the team that he's put together is starting to look pretty good, realistically.
yeah,
So let's hope that he can continue to to get some good scores and start to make up a little bit of that gap that's
I,
currently in
th-
place.
I think a big issue Craney has with his team is Havertz and Aubameyang, and almost having to decide each week which one of those two he's going to play.
Yeah,
I think he either needs to commit to playing both or ship one out and say
trade.
commit to
Yeah,
playing only one, get rid of the other, and see what you can get in return. To be
yeah,
like, you know what, I took the risk. This is the one I went with, which, like you've said, probably Havertz. At the moment, it seems like Havertz is the more
yeah,
likely starter. Yes, you'll have games where he isn't. But in saying that, if he chooses to go with Aubameyang, I would say generally Aubameyang's probably the better goal threat, more
yep,
likely to score. So you could easily go either way there. I guess it depends what value he can get in return. And if he can upgrade a midfielder there for one of those two, then I
yeah.
think you're doing pretty well.
Absolutely. Well, it is time to have a look at the games coming up in this game week so we can sort of decide which ones are going to be most fascinating. And then, of course, we need to know if Mick can actually win a multi. So let's have a bit of
No,
a look. No.
we already
Okay.
we already know the answer to that question, and no.
Sure. No, that is true. That is true. Okay. I mean, that segment could be maybe shorter, but no. Let's build up the anticipation. So we've got Leeds versus Bournemouth. We've got Man City versus Fulham. Forest v Brentford. Wolves versus Brighton. Everton versus Leicester. Chelsea versus Arsenal. Aston Villa versus Man United. Southampton versus Newcastle. West Ham versus Crystal Palace. And Spurs versus Liverpool. So, Mick, what is sort of catching your eye there? Is there any one or two
I mean,
games that are looking pretty good?
Spurs Liverpool will be pretty obvious one there, I think.
Yeah.
Um, outside of that, I mean, there's not a whole lot that I would say scream quality to me. Oh, Chelsea Arsenal's the other one. Sorry, missed that one.
Yeah,
Um,
Chelsea
they're,
Arsenal.
they're the two obvious ones to see whether Arsenal are the team that they kind of seem like they might be,
Yep.
and to
Sure.
see out of Spurs and Liverpool which one won't choke, which it could just be both of them at the moment.
Yep.
Um, Other than that, I mean, I'm interested to see what happens with City against Fulham to see who they have and who they play. Um, they're probably the main ones. And
Yep.
Newcastle, Southampton, I think that's a chance. Southampton at the start of the season might have said that's a chance for 3 points. But I think right now, if they took 3 points out of that, that's a massive, massive win.
Absolutely. And I think for the context of the league as well, like that, I think as we mentioned before, West Ham, Crystal Palace, like that's a pure mid-table clash, and whoever wins that, I think, is has at least building some momentum to start getting into or firmly into that top 10. So I think that's going to be a good clash. But yeah, I think you've sort of covered the main ones that realistically are going to be interesting. I think Everton, Leicester, because both teams have actually been playing pretty well. Like Leicester have sort of turned things around. Everton have been pretty solid realistically. That could be a really good game too, I think, just to sort of see if Leicester are climbing out and Everton at the moment look like they're pretty well safe or pretty safe.
Yeah. Defensively, Everton's been really good. Leicester haven't been that good going forward, though.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's probably going to be a pretty low scoring game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and he's saying that Everton haven't been good going forward at all, but Leicester haven't defended that well. So it might be a case of whoever can actually score a goal or win that game.
Yeah. Potential quite yeah. Definitely has the potential for that type of game. Yeah.
So
Right
I
up.
think that is where my multi was last week. That was on the Everton game. I
Yeah.
did say it'd be low scoring,
Didn't
but
work
I
well though.
did expect Calvert Lewin to score in the first half to take a lead. Unfortunately, a nil-all draw. There is no first goal scorer, so it's hard to get that one
Multi
right.
gone.
So
Yeah.
I think it was a 1 from 4 legs, that one. But this week, different story. Still 4 legs, and now that I look at it, it looks like I'm going for a lot of red teams. So
Wow.
keeping it simple. I mean, comparatively to some, simple. Brentford Forest. I'm going Brentford to win.
Okay.
Leeds Bournemouth. I'm going for a draw. Now that's probably the outsider here. Leeds probably your favourite, but
Yep.
both are coming off big wins. Leeds against
Sure.
Liverpool, Bournemouth against Man U, was it?
No. Bournemouth
Tottenham. They used to be
played
Tottenham.
Tottenham. Yeah.
3-2. Arsenal to beat Chelsea and Manchester United to beat Villa. So Brentford, Arsenal, and
Okay.
Man U all in red to get a win, and a draw between Leeds and Bournemouth is actually paying 52-1. So it's a little
Wow.
bit over, but they're the legs that I thought probably had the most that I had the most likelihood with.
Yep.
So 4 leg straight result of games. We'll see what happens this week.
you sound incredibly
Hey, it
hopeful.
can't get any worse.
Sure. Sure.
I would like to say that everybody's favorite multi I've ever put out is still live. It is from the Fulham game, Fulham Chelsea, I think it was, um, in the week where the Queen's funeral or the games got
Oh,
postponed.
right.
So
Okay.
there is still one out there. When those
True.
games get replayed, we're sitting on a winner. We're sitting on a winner.
Well, when you get to kick off the show with the introduction, we know we have had a winner. There we
That's
go.
it. That's
Very
it.
nice. Well, that rounds things out for tonight. So thank you very much, Mick, for being with us, and for those thousands of people listening. Congratulations for making it this far. We adore every single one of you, and we'll be back again next week.
Cheers, mate.
See you then.